Hey folks, this is Rhykker with a Diablo 4 Season 1 video on my top 10 best build recommendations. Based on the massive patch notes that we got earlier this week and the reveal of the Malignant Hearts, these are the 10 builds that I recommend the most going into Season 1. Now, a lot of this is speculative based on these Malignant Hearts. We haven't gotten a chance to test them, to try them out yet, so I might always update this list in the future. Stay tuned for another video or for an update in the video description, but based on our best knowledge as of right now, based on how these builds performed in the past, based on how the massive nerfs and some of the buffs have affected things, and based on the estimated power of some of these Malignant Hearts and how they can be worked into the builds, this is how I came to these 10 recommendations. Furthermore, these 10 are going to be builds that I recommend based on everything. So one build might be the best build at pushing Nightmare Dungeons, but if it's not good at just being a general build for all content, it might not rank as high or even make it into my top 10. So we're looking at builds that can do well in Nightmare Dungeons, could do well pushing Nightmare Dungeons, could do well in Helltide, could do well just speed farming the content of the game. Some people like to have different characters with different builds that are going to cover and specialize in different segments. But if you're going to be a one build kind of person, then this top 10 list is what you're looking for. And you can find build guides to all these builds on maxroll.gg. They're going to be updated in time for Season 1. So moving straight into our list, coming in at number 10, we have a Barbarian build, Whirlwind. Whirlwind is one of the strongest Barbarian builds, and it's super easy to play. In fact, if you're looking for the easiest play style, stop right here. You basically just spin to win and pop your shouts off cooldown. It's pretty good at speed farming, it's pretty good at all the general endgame content. It does struggle though, compared to other builds on this list, in pushing higher Nightmare Dungeons. We also got some changes to Gore's Devastating Grips with this patch. This is a unique item that you can work into this build that's going to help Whirlwind perform a little bit better. Now before moving on, I'm going to make an honorable mention here to the Hammer of the Ancients Barbarian. Hammer of the Ancients previously was the best Barbarian build, but there was a couple bugged interactions that were going on that were leading it to perform so well in higher Nightmare Dungeons. It has now been adjusted. Those bugged interactions have been removed, so this has been a nerf to Hoda at the higher levels of play. You're not really going to feel this nerf at the lower levels of play, however. So now Hoda and Whirlwind are roughly equal in power, but if you want to play Hoda, you still can reasonably do so. Coming in at number 9, we have a Druid build, the Pulverize build. Pulverize is a build that's pretty simple to put together, easy to play, and super tanky. Though of course with the patch, a lot of things are less tanky now, but at least relatively so. This is a build that combines earth magic with werebear form, and you just run up to enemies and smash the ground. Now it can take a little bit to get this going, not too much effort, but once you do get the right combination of gear going, just the baseline, you're able to really build up momentum and the game becomes quite easy. Now, Pulverize isn't a terribly fast build. It also works best when you're facing a high density of enemies, and it's not going to push very well into the higher Nightmare Dungeons, but you don't need any specific uniques like a lot of the really good Druid builds. So you can always use this if you want to farm up the uniques that you need for some of those Druid builds that are dependent on uniques. We got some nerfs to Grizzly Rage, which hurts this build. We got some nerfs to Masochistic, which hurts this build's sustain. But despite these nerfs, it's still strong. Now we're going to make an honorable mention here alongside the Pulverized Druid, and that is the Lightning Shred Druid. Lightning Shred is a really fast build. It's one of the fastest speed builds in the game. So compared to Pulverize, it's better at speed content, it's just generally better at endgame content, but in Nightmare Dungeons, it is significantly weaker. Again, that's if we're talking pushing. If, however, you don't care to push Nightmare Dungeons, then this is probably the best Druid build you can take. Coming in at number 8, we have a Rogue build, Rapid Fire. Now, the Rapid Fire Rogue has amazing single target damage. This makes it arguably the single best rogue build for pushing Nightmare Dungeons. But its weakness is area damage. This means when it comes to speed content, it just can't keep up with a lot of these other builds that are able to just blast down hordes of enemies very rapidly. Still, it could destroy all the content in the game It just might not do some of that content as fast as some other rogue builds, but it could absolutely blast Nightmare Dungeons better than any other. Next, we have a necromancer build. This build has come to be known as the Infinimist necro, because you can maintain 100% infinite uptime on Blood Mist. Actually, it's not really 100% uptime, you're just able to refresh your cooldowns really quickly. With the right combination of gear, you're just traveling around as your Blood Mist, and corpses are exploding around you. Now, the major downside about this build is that it's very gear dependent. You need to get the right combination of gear together to get this baby going. That's one of the reasons that I don't rank it higher up on this list. But otherwise, it performs really well in all aspects of the game. It's good at speed content, good at all general endgame content, good at Nightmare Dungeon pushing. It's not going to be the best build at any of these things, but it's really fun and again, just really strong all around. Then coming in at number 6, we got another rogue build, Penetrating Shot. Penetrating Shot is another build that just performs well in general in all endgame content, and it's benefiting tremendously from a new unique introduced with this latest patch. With the Eagle Horn unique bow that is not mandatory for this build, but could be worked in once you eventually find it, Penetrating Shot has an 80% chance to bounce off walls, so by itself, Penetrating Shot pierces enemies. Now, if it hits a wall, it could ricochet and hit more enemies. And if you hit an enemy from behind, like you're likely to do on a ricochet, you make them vulnerable. Now, this build is a little bit more technical to play. You're a sniper. This is precision. Your positioning, your aim, how you're going to ricochet, you want to be hitting as many enemies as possible. So you're shooting in a straight line, you want to line up as many enemies as possible. You're going to be trying to aim those ricochets if you can by hitting walls. That's if you really want to be getting the most out of this build. Then coming in at number 5, we have our final necromancer build. I'll be ranking this as the best necromancer build, Bone Spear. Yes, Bone Spear got a significant nerf. It's still the best necromancer build all around that I would recommend. It's still very strong. Bone Spear is not dead. Now, I'll say that I was working on this top 10 list from before the patch launched, and prior to the patch, Bone Spear was by far my number 1 choice. It was the number 1 on the list, so it's bumped down a lot. It's all the way down to number 5 now, but it's still a really strong build. It's also one of the Necromancer's best leveling builds, so you can start from level 1 as a Bone Spear Necro and carry this all the way into the end game. Where Bone Spear got hit the hardest was for Nightmare Dungeon pushing. It went down significantly there. But for just all-around content, it's still one of the best Necromancer builds. Then coming in at number 4, we got a Druid build, Lightning Storm. Now, the Lightning Storm that we're talking about is a perma-werewolf Lightning Storm Druid. So right off the bat, we're going to say this is dependent. You need the unique item Tempest Roar. This turns your base storm skills into werewolf skills so that you can constantly be a werewolf that is basically Emperor Palpatine in furry form. This build is really good at generally all endgame content, including Nightmare Dungeons, but it excels at speed farming. It won't be the best Druid build to push Nightmare Dungeons because it doesn't have the best possible single target damage, however. It does also rely quite a bit on Grizzly Rage, and we did get that nerf to Grizzly Rage. Alright, on to build number 3, another rogue build, Barrage. Barrage is the strongest ranged rogue build for general endgame content. One of the best for speed content, one of the best for just general endgame content, but when it comes to Nightmare Dungeons, it's not one of the top builds. That takes us to number 2 on our list, the best Druid build we'll recommend, the Werewolf Tornado build. Now, as suggested by the name, the Werewolf Tornado is another permanent werewolf build that is contingent on you getting the Tempest Roar unique helm. However, you could always just run before that a regular Tornado Druid. Tornado is the build that I recommend for leveling a Druid 1 to 50. So if you really want to, you could continue from that and work your way until you find that Tempest Roar, and then bam, you are coming online. The Werewolf Tornado build is the best Druid build for pushing Nightmare Dungeons. It's really good at general gameplay at the end game. It's not the fastest for speed content. There are other builds faster, but this one deals a lot more damage. It combines strong single target damage with great area damage, and it's also, for how strong it is, surprisingly simple to play. And then lastly, coming in at number 1, we have a rogue build, Twisting Blades. This is the build that I'm going for in Season 1. Twisting Blades is so fun, it's so fast, it's so strong. Is it the absolute best build for pushing nightmare dungeons? No, but it's close. But it is one of the best rogue builds for speed content and for general endgame content. You are zipping around, launching your blades, they're coming back at you. Now it is a playstyle as well that is technical. If you are not utilizing Twisting Blades to its max capacity via your positioning, you're leaving a lot of damage behind. But what that means is that you got a lot of room for improvement, for growing, that not only are you going to get better because your gear's getting better, because your character's leveling up, you're getting more Paragon, but also because you are becoming better skilled as you practice the playstyle. Since launch, we've seen a number of different varieties of Twisting Blades emerge as the best. It's probably still going to rotate through. Sometimes we use Imbuement, sometimes we use Poison Trap, and we'll give a special mention here to the Death Trap Rogue. It's technically a separate build from Twisting Blades. It's more focused on just laying your ultimate, your Death Trap, but you are still using Twisting Blades. That version of the build is not as strong as the pure Twisting Blades, but it is a lot easier to play. In fact, originally I was going to put Death Trap on this top 10 list, but I just felt bad having 5 rogue builds, rogues taking up half of the top 10, so I decided to combine Death Trap as a mention here with Twisting Blades. So altogether here with this top 10 list, we have 4 rogue builds, 3 druid builds, 2 necro builds, 1 barb build, and sweet F all for Sorks and their pear tree. Yes, unfortunately, Sorks have felt the impact of the nerfs more than any other class. Sorks, prior to this patch, did make it into my top 10. Now, after they had the fix to the cold builds, basically kill their ability to push nightmare dungeons. Again, that was fixing a broken interaction. And now just the general nerfs that have happened across the board to armor, to cooldowns. These have affected Sork's survivability more than any other class. The devs, as far as I'm aware, did not set out to nerf Sorks, but it does seem that the Sorks suffer the most from these nerfs. Sorks are so dependent on cooldown skills to avoid getting one-shot. They struggle to get defenses because armor is so much more valuable than resistances, and the Sork's main way to get armor has been heavily nerfed in Season 1. But I am very much hoping to have to make an update video in which I can recommend a Sork build, because some genius out there is going to find some beautiful, unseen combination that'll make Sorks rise. But that's my list, folks. What's your list? Did I miss any builds that you feel deserve to be in the top 10? And what build are you going for in Season 1? Sound off in the comments. Also, I know a lot of people are not eager to have to level again in the new season, but do check out my guide here. This is going to make your leveling process as quick and painless as possible. Emphasis on the painless as well, not just the quick. If literally smashing your head against a wall would be the fastest way to level up, it certainly would not be the most painless. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Twitch, Patreon, and YouTube supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, please share it, check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more Diablo content.